Golden Haven was almost empty when Mr. Malou stepped out of his office that night. The soft hum of the air conditioner, the faint scent of citrus polish on polished wood, and the echo of his leather shoes against the marble tiles were the only signs of life. It was past 10, and the last customer had long gone. The waiters had left, the chefs had clocked out, and even the night security guards were slowly retreating to their stations. As he approached his gleaming black SUV parked outside, something caught his eye. A figure stood near the vehicle, not close enough to be threatening, but certainly close enough to be noticed. She wore the brown and gold uniform of the janitorial team, her hands folded in front of her, her head slightly bowed. Mr. Malou narrowed his eyes. He didn't recognize her from this distance, but her stillness pulled at his attention. He walked slowly toward her, each step echoing under the high arch of the glass-covered canopy. The night air was thick with a heat that clung to the skin and carried the scent of rain far in the distance. When he stopped just in front of her, she glanced up only briefly before looking away again. "You're one of the cleaning staff, yes?" he asked, his voice low but not unkind. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "My name is Aida." Her voice was respectful, almost too quiet, and her fingers trembled just slightly. Mr. Malou tilted his head. "Why are you standing near my car? Are you waiting for someone?" "No, sir," she whispered. She bit her lip, took a small breath, then added, "I wanted to ask a favor." He crossed his arms, watching her. "Go ahead." She lifted her head just a fraction and then dropped it again. "Would it be all right if I took home some of the leftover food, sir? Just the leftovers, nothing more." Mr. Malou was silent. Her words weren't desperate, just heavy. And somehow, heavier still was the way she looked at the ground, as though even this small request carried shame. Her shoes were worn thin at the toes. Her voice, though polite, carried exhaustion like a second skin. He nodded slowly. "All right." "Thank you, sir," she murmured and turned quickly, heading back into the restaurant. But Mr. Malou didn't open his car door. He remained standing, arms crossed, staring at the door she had just disappeared through. There was a shift within him, a quiet disturbance in the part of his heart he often silenced with logic. He closed his eyes and replayed her voice. The request wasn't greedy. It was simple. Basic. Food. For whom, he wondered. She hadn't asked for a raise or money or time off. Just leftovers. Why? He leaned back against his car and glanced at his watch. Almost 10:15. But he had no desire to leave. Not yet. He needed to understand. He whispered to himself, "I'll wait." 10 minutes passed, then the kitchen door swung open again. Ada emerged, clutching 2 small black plastic bags to her chest. She didn't look around. She walked quickly, her back slightly bent, her feet moving with silent urgency. Mr. Malou quietly opened his car door, slipped into the driver's seat, and started the engine without headlights. He kept a safe distance, driving slowly as he followed her through the city streets. The bus she boarded was old, a battered yellow minivan packed with people. Without hesitation, he followed, careful not to get too close. The road turned rough, the neighborhoods changed. Lights grew fewer, potholes widened. 30 minutes later, the bus stopped. Ida stepped off, still clutching the 2 bags. She didn't hesitate. She took a narrow dirt path, lined with crumbling fences and dimly lit only by the occasional flicker of a naked bulb. Mr. Malou parked his car some distance away, killed the engine, and got out. He walked, quietly, his polished shoes now coated in dust. What he saw next stopped him cold. Ida approached what could barely be called a house. It was more ruin than home walls cracked like dry earth, a roof of rusted tin sheets, a door barely hanging on its hinges. He whispered, "She lives here?" Disbelief clung to him like the humid air. From the shadows he watched. The door creaked open and two little girls ran barefoot into the night, their voices full of light. "Mama!" they cried. "Mama, you're home!" Ada dropped the bags and caught them both in her arms, her smile stretching wide, though her eyes betrayed her fatigue. She knelt and kissed their foreheads, whispering something he couldn't hear. She led them inside, and Mr. Malou crept closer, stopping near a broken window. He peeked in. The interior was dim, the floor bare. No furniture, just a woven mat in the corner. The girls sat eagerly on it. Ida opened one of the plastic bags and pulled out rice and a single piece of chicken. She divided it equally between two small plastic plates and handed them to the girls. They ate quickly, hungrily smiling between bites, but Ada didn't eat. She sat beside them, her hands folded in her lap, watching them with a gentle smile and eyes full of a quiet ache. Mr. Malou felt a weight settle in his chest. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. He watched this woman, this silent worker, who greeted everyone with a bow, give away everything she had, and ask nothing in return. He stepped back from the window, tears rising without permission. He looked down at his polished shoes, his crisp-tailored suit, and for the first time in a long time, he felt poor. Not in wealth, in humanity. He turned away, heart pounding, and walked back to his car. The image of a mother sitting quietly beside her children, empty plate, full heart burned into his memory. That night, as the city slept and the moon cast silver light over cracked rooftops, a wealthy man sat alone in his car, and for the first time in years, he questioned everything. Morning broke over Kinshasa with a pale softness, the kind of quiet sunrise that slips through the cracks of rooftops and lands gently on tired skin. Inside the crumbling shelter she called home, Ada was already awake. Her two daughters, Imani and Zola, still slept soundly on the woven mat, their tiny bodies curled toward each other like two petals on the same flower. Ida sat beside them, her back straight against the wall, her eyes tracing the thin rays of light creeping through the gaps in the tin roof. Her hands, calloused and dry, rested on her knees as she whispered a silent prayer. She reached out and gently brushed the hair from Imani's forehead, then leaned down and kissed Zola's cheek. "Wake up, my loves," she said softly. "It's time for school." The girls stirred, stretching with the slow reluctance of children who had learned early that mornings meant walking on dust with empty bellies. But today they were met with a mother whose face, while tired, was lit with a kind of calm they rarely saw. Ada walked to the corner of the room and picked up a small yellow bucket. She stepped outside, crossed the narrow alley behind the house, and filled it with water from the communal tap, the cold liquid numbing her fingers as she carried it back carefully. She placed it over the single-burner stove and warmed it slowly while the girls yawned and folded their mat. One by one, she bathed them in the tin basin, her hands gentle but firm, then dried them with a faded towel and helped them into their clean but worn school uniforms. She tied their hair into two neat puffed tails, pressing the strands into place with the same care one might use to iron royalty's robe. Then she reached into the black plastic bag from the night before. There was still a little rice left, just enough. She heated it carefully, portioned it into two small bowls, and placed them before her daughters. "Eat slowly," she said. Imani beamed. "It's warm, Mama." And Zola, mouth already full, mumbled, "It tastes better today." Ada smiled but did not eat. She watched them, her stomach empty but her heart full, because sometimes love fills you where food cannot. When they finished, she packed their old notebooks into their backpacks and handed them each a bottle of boiled water. Then she held their hands as they stepped outside into the dusty road, the morning light stretching around their figures like a quiet blessing. They walked past rusting fences, cracked walls, and houses leaning like tired men against a bar. The school was just a few blocks away, a building that had once been yellow but now stood bare and gray, its windows cracked, its paint peeling. Yet the courtyard was alive with laughter and the sound of children chasing one another across the yard. Ada knelt in front of her daughters, her hands resting on their small shoulders. "Be good," she whispered. "Mama will be back this evening." The girls nodded, then ran toward the school gate, waving back as they disappeared inside. Ada stood there for a moment, then turned around and began her walk to work. Her steps were quick, steady, purposeful. The city was waking. Market vendors shouted greetings across the street. Old buses coughed black smoke into the air. Children darted between wheelbarrows full of bananas. The scent of charcoal and fried plantains mixed with dust and traffic. By the time she arrived at Golden Haven, she had already walked 4 kilometers under a rising sun. She changed into her brown and gold uniform in the back corridor, tied on her apron, and picked up her broom. Without a word, she began sweeping the lobby, moving methodically from one corner to the next. She wiped each table as if it mattered. She scrubbed the floor tiles with rhythm. She polished glass as though the world might judge her by its reflection. And when she passed her colleagues, she greeted them all with a soft smile. No one knew where she came from, no one asked, and she never offered. In his office upstairs, Mr. Malou sat behind the wide glass window that overlooked the entrance. He wasn't reading the emails on his screen. He wasn't answering calls. His eyes were far, drawn back to the night before, to the broken house and the woman kneeling in love. He saw Ada now, cleaning the very glass he looked through, and he felt something shift again inside his chest. He picked up his phone and called the head of Human Resources. "Raise the wages of all cleaning staff," he said plainly. "Begin this month. No one should go home hungry after working here." The HR manager hesitated, then confirmed quickly. Mr. Malou ended the call and leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes. He saw again the plate of rice, the chicken divided in 2, the way Aida had smiled but never eaten. He whispered, "She didn't even eat." Downstairs, Ada moved to the main windows by the entrance. She scrubbed the corners, wiped the smudges, adjusted the curtains. Just as she was finishing, the head chef appeared. "Ada." "Yes, chef. The patron wants to see you in his office." Ada froze. "Me? Did I do something wrong?" "I don't know," the chef said. "He just said to come immediately." Ada wiped her hands on her apron, heart hammering, and followed the corridor to the upper floor. She stopped at the office door, took a breath, then knocked gently. "Come in," said the calm voice inside. She opened the door and stepped in. Mr. Malou looked up and smiled faintly. "Good morning, Ida. Please, sit." She hesitated, then lowered herself into the chair, eyes down. There was a long silence. Then he said simply, "I followed you the other night." Her head jerked up, eyes wide. "Followed me?" "Sir, I didn't mean any disrespect. I wasn't stealing. I only wanted to feed my children." "I swear," her voice trembled. Tears welled up already, Mr. Malou raised a hand gently. "You did nothing wrong." He leaned forward, hands clasped. "I saw where you live. I saw your daughters. I saw how you gave them everything and ate nothing. Ada lowered her gaze. The tears fell silently, staining her uniform. He waited. Then he said softly, "You're a good mother. You're strong. And you have dignity." She said nothing, only wept. Not out of shame, but from something older, deeper relief. He waited until her shoulders stopped shaking. Then he said, "Thank you. I want to help." She looked up slowly. "Me? Sir?" "Yes. Come back tomorrow morning. I have something to tell you." She stood up, her legs unsteady. "Thank you, sir. Thank you. May God bless you." He nodded. She left quietly, her heart full of questions, her soul full of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Ada barely slept that night. She lay on the mat between her daughters, their tiny bodies rising and falling with the rhythm of innocent dreams, while her mind ran in circles around the words of Mr. Malou. "Come back tomorrow. I have something to tell you." Her heart refused to settle. Was it a warning? Was it a trap? Had she offended him without meaning to? Or could it really be something good? At dawn, before the sky turned fully blue, she rose quietly and began her usual routine. She washed her daughters, prepared their uniforms, and combed their hair with fingers that trembled slightly more than usual. She divided the last of the rice from the previous night, enough for 2 small bowls, and watched as the girls ate with sleepy smiles. She said nothing of the meeting. She kissed them both, walked them to school, and then turned toward the Golden Haven with a pace slower than usual, as though delaying the unknown might change its shape. When she arrived at the restaurant, she did not go to the cleaning supply room. She went straight to the top floor. The receptionist gave her a curious glance but didn't stop her. Everyone had heard by now that the patron had called the cleaning woman to his office. Ada stood before the tall door once again, knocked lightly, and heard the same calm voice invite her in. Mr. Malou was already seated at his desk, a manila envelope resting before him, his hands folded. "Good morning, Ida," he said. "Sit, please." She sat, slower this time, her eyes fixed on the envelope. He slid it across the desk. "Read this," he said. Her fingers hovered, then reached out. The first words made her blink twice. Appointment. Personal assistant to the Director General. She read it again, then looked up, her lips parted. "Sir, this is this for me?" "Yes," he said simply. "Starting today, you are no longer a cleaning staff member. You are now my personal assistant. Stable hours, higher salary, proper benefits. No more struggling." Ada covered her mouth with both hands. Her shoulders shook. She was crying before she could speak. "I don't know what to say." "Thank you, sir. Thank you." But he wasn't finished. He opened a drawer and pulled out another envelope, thicker and sealed. "I've purchased a small apartment for you and your daughters," he said. "Not a palace, but clean, safe, with electricity, water, and real beds." Aida dropped to her knees, both hands still pressed to her chest. Her tears fell freely, pooling on the floor. She couldn't speak. She could only nod repeatedly, as if trying to convince herself this was real. "You deserve it, Ada," Mr. Malou said gently. "You didn't ask for help. You simply endured. But no one should have to endure alone." He reached into the drawer one last time and placed a third envelope on the desk. "And this," he said, "is some money. Tonight, you buy a real dinner. You eat with your daughters, all 3 of you." She took the envelope slowly, held it close to her heart, and finally whispered, "May God bless you. May your children never know hunger. May your name be honored. You have changed my life." That evening, the little home that once smelled of damp dust and boiled water was transformed by the scent of seasoned rice, fried chicken, and warm vegetables. Ada stood by the stove, stirring with a wooden spoon, her eyes shining not with sadness but with something brighter, something steadier. Her hands were still worn, her clothes still modest, but her spirit had shifted. The girls sat on the mat, eyes wide as they watched their mother plate the meal. "Mama, you made so much chicken today," said Amani. Zola added, "It smells like a feast." Ida turned and smiled. "Tonight we eat well, my loves." She placed 3 full plates on the mat. Real portions, real food, not leftovers, not cold, hot, fresh, and enough. The girls began eating eagerly, moaning with delight after every bite. "Mama, this is the best meal ever," said Zola. "It tastes like heaven," said Amani. And this time, Ada didn't just sit beside them. She sat with them. She ate. Her first bite brought tears to her eyes, but she smiled through them. She chewed slowly, tasting every grain of rice, every spice, every drop of oil as if it were made of gold. It tasted like life. It tasted like something lost and finally found. It tasted like tomorrow. That night, as they cleaned their bowls and stacked them carefully, the silence in the house wasn't heavy. It was gentle. It was peace. And it lingered in the air like a blessing. The next morning, a black SUV rolled to a quiet stop outside the broken shelter where Aida had lived for years. She was already outside, holding the girls' school bags. She frowned at the sight of the car. The driver stepped out and greeted her respectfully. "Good morning, madam. Mr. Malu sent me. Today is the day. Your new home is ready." Ida stood frozen. "It's today?" The man smiled. "Yes, madam. Everything is waiting for you." She turned slowly toward her daughters. "Pack your things, my darlings. We're moving." The girls shrieked with joy, running back inside to gather their few belongings. They emerged with worn bags, 2 dolls, and unmatched shoes, grinning from ear to ear. They climbed into the car with their mother, who looked out the window as the streets began to pass by. She didn't speak. Her heart was too full. But inside her, a quiet song rose, a song of freedom, a song of home. The car rolled slowly to a stop in front of a modest cream-colored building, its walls clean, its windows intact, the roof strong and straight beneath the warm morning sun. Ida stepped out first, still clutching the girls' school bags, her eyes wide, scanning every detail as if afraid it might vanish if she blinked. The driver opened the back door, and Amani and Zola tumbled out with delighted shrieks, their little feet slapping the concrete as they ran toward the front door. "Mama, look, it has real glass windows," Zola cried. "And a real lock," shouted Amani, twisting the doorknob like it was a toy. Ada followed slowly. Her feet moved with caution, as if each step forward might trigger a dream to dissolve. But the building didn't disappear. The door opened, and inside was a living room, not grand but clean, a couch in the center, a small table, curtains that moved gently with the breeze. To the left was a kitchen with shelves, actual shelves, a proper stove, a faucet that worked. And beyond that, 2 bedrooms with beds, real beds, with mattresses, sheets, and pillows that smelled of newness and sunlight. The girls ran from room to room, touching everything, laughing as they flopped onto the beds, bouncing and rolling. "Mama, come see." "It's soft. It's so soft." Ada didn't answer right away. She stood in the doorway of the living room and simply breathed. Then she walked to the couch, placed the school bags carefully on the floor, and sat down. Her body felt light, not because the burden was gone, but because for the first time it was shared. She looked around, eyes moving from wall to wall, her chest rising slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how, but thank you." The girls were still playing when her phone rang. She startled, reached into her pocket, and saw the name on the screen. Mr. Malou. She answered immediately, standing instinctively. "Good morning, sir." His voice was gentle, almost smiling. "Good morning, Ada. I just wanted to make sure you arrived safely." "Yes, sir. We are here. I don't have words. It's beautiful." "The girls are," her voice caught. "I can't stop thanking you. You don't need to," he said quietly. "Today is yours. Don't come into work. Stay home. Cook something nice. Laugh. This day belongs to you and your daughters." Ada pressed her hand to her chest. "Thank you, sir. 1,000 times. Thank you. You earned it, Ada. We'll see you tomorrow." The call ended, and she held the phone for a moment longer, as if still hearing his voice. Then she turned toward the kitchen. She opened the cupboard and found bags of rice, vegetables, oil, spices neatly arranged. Ada smiled as she pulled them out one by one. She began to cook, humming softly as the scent of garlic and onion rose in the air, blending with the smell of fresh paint and sun-warmed tiles. The girls came running into the kitchen. "What are you making, Mama?" "Our first real meal in our new home," she said. "Come, help me set the plates." Amani grabbed a spoon. Zola pulled out the cups. And before long, 3 plates were filled with golden rice, fried plantains, and warm stew. They sat together on the floor because the dining table hadn't arrived yet. But it didn't matter. It was their table now. "Before we eat," Ada said, her voice calm, "let's say thank you." She reached out both hands. The girls grabbed them, and together they bowed their heads. "Thank you, God," Ada whispered. "Thank you for this roof, for this food, for this moment, for letting me sit and eat with my daughters." "Amen," said Imani and Zola in unison, eyes still closed. Then they laughed, opened their eyes, and began to eat, giggling between bites. Ada watched them for a long time, then picked up her spoon and joined them. She took a bite, and another. She didn't cry this time. She smiled. She chewed slowly, tasting not just the spices, but the truth. This wasn't charity. This was dignity returned. That night, after the girls had fallen asleep in their own beds, beneath their own blankets, Ada sat alone in the living room. No sounds of dripping water, no creaking roof, just silence, warm and peaceful. She turned off the lights and let the moonlight fill the space. She closed her eyes and rested her head back, and in that stillness she understood. Her life had changed not because someone gave her pity, but because someone saw her, truly saw her. The woman who swept the floors, the mother who gave everything, and chose, quietly, to give something back. The next morning arrived with golden light streaming gently through the curtains of the new apartment. The soft rhythm of birds outside, the distant laughter of children walking to school, the quiet hum of the city waking up all folded into a sound Ada had never known in her own home before tranquility. She opened her eyes slowly, not to the cracked ceiling of a collapsing shelter, but to a clean white surface, smooth and whole. She turned her head and saw her daughters still asleep, each in their own bed, arms flung over fluffy pillows, breathing peacefully. She smiled to herself, letting the silence linger. There was no rush today, no scramble for water, no urgent thoughts about how to stretch leftovers into a meal, just space, time, breathing room. She rose from her bed, walked barefoot into the kitchen, and filled the kettle. As the water boiled, she looked around the apartment again, still half in disbelief. Her eyes moved from the polished floor tiles to the sunlight dancing across the countertop, and she felt her heart tighten with emotion, not from pain this time, but from a quiet joy that wrapped itself around her ribs like a warm cloth. The girls woke up soon after. They entered the kitchen, rubbing their eyes, then lit up when they remembered where they were. "Mama, are we still dreaming?" Imani asked. "No, my love," Ada replied softly. "This is real." Zola hugged her from the side and whispered, "Can we stay here forever?" "Yes, my baby. This is home now." They had a slow breakfast, tea and bread and a little butter. It felt like a feast. They laughed. They shared stories about school. They danced a little in the living room. Ada caught herself smiling for no reason, then let it happen. Around midday, she checked her phone. No missed calls, no urgent messages. Just one unread text from Mr. Malou. It read, "Hope you're settling in well. Take your time. You're not expected back until tomorrow." She replied quickly, "Thank you again, sir. My daughters and I are safe, well, and deeply grateful." Then she put the phone away. Today was not for screens. It was for presents. In the afternoon, she walked with her daughters to the local market, hand in hand. They bought fresh tomatoes, onions, cassava flour, a few spices, and 2 ripe mangoes. The vendor greeted her with warmth. She didn't know Ida's story, but something in the woman's face, in the way she carried herself, had changed. It was something in the eyes, a steadiness, a clarity. That night, Ada made fufu and sauce tomato. The girls set the table with cloth napkins and cups filled with clean water. They prayed again, this time with longer words. "Thank you for this food. Thank you for this house. Thank you for this new start." After dinner, the girls curled up on the couch with her and asked her to tell them a story. She did not tell them about hardship. She did not tell them about hunger. She told them about light, about kindness, about how sometimes, even when no one sees you, someone does. Someone who chooses not to walk away. She didn't say Mr. Malou's name, but she whispered a blessing for him anyway. The days that followed settled into a rhythm of purpose. Ada returned to work, now dressed in her new roll-simple blouse, notebook in hand, a badge that read, "Assistant to the Director." She walked through the same corridors, but no longer with her eyes down. The staff looked at her differently, some with surprise, some with respect, but all with acknowledgement. Mr. Malou greeted her every morning with a nod and a soft smile. He didn't treat her like a trophy. He treated her like a partner. She listened in meetings, took notes, helped him organize schedules. She learned quickly, quietly, confidently. She was still Aida, still the same woman who gave her children the last spoon of rice. But now she walked with her head held high. She had not been rescued. She had been recognized. 1 month after she moved in, a small envelope arrived by mail. No name on the front, just a message inside that read, "I saw you before the world did. You taught me what wealth really means." There was no signature, but she didn't need one. She tucked it into the back of her Bible. One evening, as she watched her daughters sleep, their breathing steady, their little feet no longer bruised from cold concrete floors, Ada sat by the window and stared at the stars. She thought about how close she had come to giving up, how she had once whispered to the night, "Is anyone watching? Is anyone listening?" and how the answer had come not with noise, but with a man in silence, standing in the dark, seeing everything. She breathed in slowly, filled with something stronger than certainty, faith. Not in miracles that fall from the sky, but in quiet people who choose compassion. The next morning, she rose before dawn and boiled water for tea. She smiled as the steam curled into the air, blessing a house no longer broken. Then she woke her daughters, combed their hair, and dressed them in clean uniforms. Before they left, she held them close and whispered the same words she had said many times before, but now they sounded different. Walk tall, my loves. The world may not see you at first, but one day someone will, and when they do, let them see the light I see in you every single day.